Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're watching this right now, I'm guessing you probably just opened your freezer door and got that immediate sinking feeling. The food is getting soft, and the panic is definitely starting to set in. But I want you to just take a deep breath. We are going to calmly walk through exactly what to do when your freezer stops working, step by step. You're going to learn how to diagnose this issue like an absolute pro, and most importantly, how to save your food and your hard-earned money.
So have you noticed this happening recently? Maybe your ice cream has turned into soup, the meat has completely lost its firmness, or you're suddenly hearing this strange repetitive clicking noise coming from the back of the unit. It is incredibly stressful when you realize your food might spoil. Naturally, your very first thought is probably, oh no, I have to go out and buy a whole new appliance. But let me reassure you right now. Most of the time, the fix is so much simpler and a whole lot cheaper than you think.
Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to look at this strictly from an appliance technician's perspective. You see, when a pro walks into your kitchen, they don't just immediately assume the absolute worst. They follow a very specific, logical triage plan. We're going to do the exact same thing, starting with the absolute easiest, zero-cost checks first, before we even think about moving on to anything complex. This structured approach is going to save you so much time and headache.
Level 1. Zero-cost fixes.
Before you even think about picking up the phone to call for a repair, let's look at the simple things that trick people every single day. Honestly, you'd be amazed how often a broken freezer is literally just a tiny oversight, like, say, a bumped temperature dial. First, just confirm it's actually set to -18 degrees Celsius or 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, take a look inside. Are there boxes crammed right up against the back vents? Your freezer desperately needs airflow to work. It's not a game of Tetris. Go ahead and clear those dense items away. Finally, try a hard reset. Just unplug the unit entirely or flip the breaker for 10 full minutes to reset the electronic control board. If your freezer starts humming and cooling after that, well, congratulations, you just fix it for free.
Now, if the settings are totally fine, we need to look at the door seal, which is also known as the gasket. Let's walk through how to test this step by step. Step 1. Open the door and close it on a regular dollar bill or just a piece of paper, leaving about half of it sticking out. Step 2. Tug gently on the paper. You should feel a really noticeable resistance. If that paper just slides right out without any friction at all, your magnetic gasket is compromised. Step 3. If you want extra confirmation, put a bright flashlight inside the freezer, turn off your kitchen lights, and close the door. If you see light leaking out from the edges, that means warm, moist air from your kitchen is flooding into the cabin, which forces your freezer to work in overdrive.
Level 2. Airflow and the defrost system. So, if those simple fixes didn't do the trick, we need to look at how air actually moves inside the unit. One of the most massive mistakes homeowners make is overpacking. Cold air is generated and pushed upward by an evaporator fan. If you completely pack every inch of those shelves, you are literally choking that fan. The air simply can't circulate, leaving some areas frozen solid while other areas start to thaw out. Proper organization here is absolutely crucial for an even temperature.
So, how do you know if that fan is actually working? Well, you can test it using the incredibly easy door switch trick. Usually, when you open the freezer door, the fan stops automatically to save energy. Find the little door switch on the inner frame and just press it down with your finger. This tricks the freezer into thinking the door is closed. Listen very carefully. If you hear a smooth hum and feel a cold breeze, your fan is good. But if you hear absolute silence, or worse, a high-pitched squeal, your evaporator fan motor is dead and it's gonna need to be replaced. Now, what if you open the freezer and there is just a massive, thick wall of snow and ice right on the back panel? That is a classic telltale sign that your defrost system has failed. This system uses a timer, a thermostat, and a heater that all work together to silently melt away daily frost. If any one of these breaks, ice builds up and blocks the airflow entirely. As a temporary DIY fix, you can unplug the unit and leave the doors open for 24 to 48 hours to melt that blockage completely. Wipe it totally dry and then restart it. This will save your food for a few weeks, but listen, if that thick ice wall returns, you'll know for sure a component in this defrost loop needs a proper replacement.
Level 3. The engine room and diagnostics. Let's move to the back and underneath the freezer. This is where the heavy lifting happens. Your condenser coils are designed to release heat to the outside air, but if they are covered in years of dust and pet hair, they physically trap that heat. Your compressor is then forced to run 24/7 just trying to cool the inside. This completely spikes your energy bill and almost guarantees a really expensive compressor blowout down the line. Seriously, a $75 skipped cleaning often leads to an $800 repair.
Does your freezer sound a bit different lately? If it's totally warm inside, but you hear a loud click, followed by silence, and then another click a few minutes later, your compressor is trying to start but failing. Often, the culprit isn't actually the super expensive compressor itself, but a tiny $10 part called the start relay. If you're comfortable using a multimeter and you have safely unplugged the unit, you can easily test this relay for continuity. It is a very common, really inexpensive fix that literally saves a unit from the scrapyard.
Level 4, the Pro-Only Zone.
All right, we have now reached the point where our DIY testing needs to hit the brakes. If you've checked the fans, cleaned the coils, tested the relay, and your compressor is still completely dead, or if you suspect a microscopic refrigerant leak because the system runs but just won't get cold, you absolutely must consult a certified technician. Working with these specific elements requires specialized licenses, tools, and training. So the really crucial point here is knowing exactly when to call in that pro. These specific scenarios, like a total compressor failure, a refrigerant leak, or complex electrical shorts, they require cutting into copper lines, welding, and legally handling Freon gas. These are definitely not weekend DIY projects. And because these specific repairs come with pretty hefty price tags, it's time to take a hard look at the financial realities.
The economic decision, repair versus replace.
Now that we know what's wrong, let's break down the basic economic criteria to decide if it's actually worth fixing. It's a balance between the age of your unit and the repair cost. If your freezer's under 8 years old and the repair's just a $50 gasket or a $150 thermostat, fixing it is a really smart economical move. But pouring $500 into a failing compressor on a 15-year-old unit, that is almost always a bad bet. To make this perfectly clear, we like to use what's called the tipping point rule. Here is exactly when buying a new appliance makes more sense than repairing the old one. If the estimated repair cost is over 50% of the price of a brand new unit, or if your freezer is over 12 years old, you should just go ahead and replace it. Past 12 years, replacement parts get really rare, and the whole system is nearing the end of its natural life anyway.
And there's one more hidden variable you've got to factor in here: annual energy consumption. An older unit from the 90s or early 2000s runs up your electricity bill significantly. A modern Energy Star rated model is so much more efficient that it will save you roughly $180 a year in electricity. So over 5 years, a new unit will save you enough in power to literally pay for itself. Paying a huge repair bill on an old energy hog just locks you into years of excess utility bills.
Preventative maintenance.
Whether you decide to fix your current freezer or buy a brand new one, let's make sure you never have to deal with this stress ever again. I always say that a reactive $500 repair is usually just the result of proactive maintenance that simply didn't happen. By taking a few minutes, just a few times a year, you can drastically extend the life of your appliance and prevent that terrifying wall of ice from ever forming. Here are your simple, essential steps to prevent ice buildup and total failure. First, get the vacuum out and clean those back condenser coils every 6 to 12 months. Second, never block the internal vents. Always leave a little space for the air to flow freely. Third, perform that dollar bill paper test on your door seals every single year to ensure warm moisture isn't sneaking in. And finally, always let your hot food cool down to room temperature before putting it in the freezer. Hot food releases massive amounts of steam that instantly turns right into frost.
Just a quick reminder, this explainer is intended as general advice only. Anytime you're dealing with high voltage electricity or internal refrigerants, reaching out to a qualified professional is absolutely your safest bet. Please don't take any unnecessary risks.
You now have the tools and the knowledge to diagnose your freezer with absolute confidence. You know what to check, how to test it, and exactly when it's time to just walk away and replace it. But it does bring up a larger question. In an age where a $75 missed cleaning can literally ruin an $800 machine, are our appliances built to last or just built to be replaced? Let me know your thoughts, and hey, tell me your own freezer horror stories down in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button for more money-saving breakdowns, and we'll see you in the next explainer.